Now to the big news out of the UK. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has resigned. Political watchers were on high alert all weekend, looking for any signs Starmer would fight growing calls for change at the top. The announcement of his departure caps a decade of turmoil since a majority voted to take Britain out of the European Union. Now for the latest on this, let's bring in our Europe correspondent, Remond Shannon, who joins us now from Downing Street, where Starmer made the announcement not too long ago. So Remond, take us through how all of this unfolded.
Yes, good morning, Miranda. Yes, the short time ago, just a few hours ago, Keir Starmer came out of the front door of 10 Downing Street and arrived to the all too familiar lectern placed in front of the Prime Minister's residence and announced his intention to step aside as Labour Party leader and as Prime Minister eventually. Now, this comes after not just weeks but months of pressure for him to step aside, with tanking poll numbers for the governing Labour Party here in the UK. But really what made this happen today was that by-election in the north of England on Thursday, where the former government minister and the mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, ran for Labour and won a seat. And once he became an MP, it seems as though cabinet ministers told Starmer that they were going to support Burnham now that he is an MP and that it was time to step aside. So Starmer then came out, he lauded his achievements of turning the Labour Party around, bringing it into power, and his achievements over the past 2 years, while acknowledging that he is no longer the person to lead Labour into the next election. He did then pay tribute to his family. Take a listen.
I shall spend more time on the most important job, being the best husband I can to my fantastic wife Vic, who has been a rock by my side through good times and bad, and being the best dad I can to my beautiful children, who are my pride and my joy. Thank you very much.
So that emotion that we saw from Starmer just here a few hours ago is something that his critics say perhaps was missing from his leadership, that he was seen as a bit too wooden, but it is all too late for Starmer now. He will only be Prime Minister for perhaps a few weeks or maybe a couple of months at maximum.
All right, Remond, tell us more about who we can then expect now to challenge for the leadership.
Yes, as I mentioned, Andy Burnham now is the hot favourite to do so. He is the mayor of Greater Manchester. He was a cabinet minister under the Tony Blair government 2 decades ago, a very experienced politician, very popular in the north of England, where the Labour Party is fighting against Nigel Farage's Reform Party. And he is now expected to take the Prime Minister's job because the main contender, Wes Streeting, the former health minister, announced immediately after Burnham this morning said he was going to run. Streeting said, I'm supporting Burnham. So this could be somewhat of a coronation rather than a contest, and we could see a new Prime Minister here, unless there's another challenger, a new Prime Minister here sometime next month.
Now, Remond, tomorrow marks 10 years since the Brexit vote. Can't believe it's been a decade. I mean, what do you think this says, this departure by Starmer? What do you think it says about the state of Britain in the decade since then?
Well, if you can connect the two things, which I think it's impossible not to, Miranda, we've had so many prime ministerial changes over that decade, exactly a decade tomorrow. We started with David Cameron coming out here in 2016 after he supported the UK to stay in the EU and the people voted to leave. He resigned. Theresa May took over. She was unable to implement Brexit and resigned after 3 years. Then, of course, Boris Johnson took over, pushed the UK out of the EU in his own very special way, but scandals took him down. Liz Truss took over, you may remember, for fewer than 50 days. Her fiscal policy was disastrous. Then Rishi Sunak took over. He called an election, and Keir Starmer took over then. So now we're going to have yet another Prime Minister within 1 decade. And Brexit, at least, is part to blame for that somewhat chaotic nature of British politics. But the rise of the Reform Party here is a big factor too. And Burnham now has 3 years before the next election to turn things turn things around for Labour if they want to stay in power.
Right, it's going to be a tough job. That is our Europe correspondent, Remond Shannon, joining us from 10 Downing Street. Remond, thank you for the breakdown and the update.